some of the new features and some of the disaster recovery plans, health checks and performance tuning in SharePoint Server 2003. I'm a SharePoint MVP and Microsoft Certified Trainer on SharePoint as well. Before we move further, I hope that all of you are able to hear me and should be able to see my screen. Today's agenda would be we will be discussing some of the new features, as I've already said, and some of the disaster recovery plans for SharePoint, health checks, and SharePoint, some of the tips. We will be discussing how we can, do the best health checks, what kind of things we generally miss for the health checks, and we will be looking up a bit of performance tuning things as well, wherein we have the warm-up scripts. We will be looking at some of the options of the caching in SharePoint. We will also be looking at some of the options wherein we can have or we could do the IS optimizations for improving the performance, and a little bit brief of the SQL tuning I would also love to share in this session. As you all know, SharePoint 2013 has come up with a huge variety of the things and a bit of good performance improvements over 2010. So I would be just touching up all of these, some of the improvements which I feel that it's good to share. So I would say that new feature, I have always devised it based on two different things. I would say one improvement is basically for end user things, and other is basically always from the infrastructure changes. End user level things, I think we might not be interested in knowing, but just we can say is that it's kind of a very device friendly these days. User can just drag and drop their things, and it is very connected through like we have the social networking features deployed in 2013 as well, wherein people can straight away see what are their colleagues and which level of organization they are standing at. And it's kind of very user friendly as well. But as for my concern, I would be more concentrating towards infrastructure level changes, wherein we have some kind of service applications, which are some new service application introduced, or some of the existing service application is being improved. It has a scalable architecture as well. Security has been improved. How SharePoint 2013 is reliable, so, and it's also in terms of cost effectiveness, how it comes in picture. Efficiency we will also be looking at. So talking about the service application, as you all know that we have a translation service introduced. You can reach to more people with the new cloud-based translation service capable of translating not only sites but also their content. This service has the comprehensive set of APIs, REST and CSOM support, so content can be partialized with when needed or translated in by the users, like synchronization or streaming. Other thing in service application is which I feel is best is that application management service application which SharePoint 2013 has given. Since this application is secure, focus solutions that is easy to develop, deploy a new marketplace. I think Microsoft has come up with a new marketplace wherein we can monitor and retire application as well as we need it. Moreover, managing applications should be easy. SharePoint 2013 includes a new service application of application management. This application is basically designed to take guesswork out of managing applications, permissions, and licensing, were installed from the SharePoint Marketplace and internal app directory. This application also gives some kind of flexibility to developers as well, wherein they can develop their applications and they can also put in some kind of rates on their applications. If somebody going to that Microsoft Marketplace for 2013 applications, that person can also buy the application from that, which can be a kind of giving a kind of cost benefit to the people who have basically developed it. Other service application I feel is work management, wherein new work management service provider support for action based event aggression across Microsoft service products, including Microsoft's Exchange Server, Link Server, Project Server, and SharePoint Server 2013. For example, we can say that if user can edit tasks from Microsoft Exchange Server on their mobile phone, and Work Management Service aggregates take from Exchange Server in the My Tasks SharePoint list. So that's a kind of very good flexibility we have, that people edit something on their mobile, and while they're connected through the internet, everything get updated on their SharePoint task list. Same way as we have this service, we have PowerPoint automation service, which also has come with enhanced version, which can automatically convert Microsoft PowerPoint presentation into a variety of formats to promote a high degree of accessibility. Formats includes new Office documents or web pages or PDFs. More of the things we have, I think Office web apps is quite improved, as we have already talked about the application management, and user profile services has also come up with a kind of enhanced version, wherein we have Microsoft Forefront Identity Manager. I think you guys might have used in your organizations, which basically this software is basically used for taking up some of the specialized field which you don't want to pull up from the Active Directory from the background. Suppose if there's a display name in Active Directory, I would love that field to be changed to maybe, let's say, a kind of a first name or maybe the last name. So I can use this Forefront Identity Manager to map those display name to the field which I would love to get or available in user profile services for the user. So Forefront Identity Manager and Active Directory works hand in hand. So user profile services is giving quite of easy flexibility to do this kind of tweaking in 2013. Talking about the scalable architectures, I have seen a lot of improvements over the distributed caches, wherein data-driven applications have become increasingly preventing in data is consuming for more diverse sources, like such as we have business applications, we have syndicated feeds, and we have social contacts. So this includes a new distributed cache service built on the reliability of Windows Server App Fabric caching. I have not personally used this one, but I believe this is quite kind of improvement. There are a lot of improvements over the disk input-output operations as well. We have shared storage improved as well in 2013. Talking about security, I would say information management is improved, electronic discoverability is improved, right management has also been improved. I'm just moving up with this kind of just giving a brief information because we have a lot to cover in the background as well, and our main motive is to look some kind of things where we feel that we have some kind of things to cover in the performance tuning of SharePoint, which is kind of I think the concern of this particular session. Under reliability, we have request management improved, wherein it is more robust and is more secure. System status notification we have, wherein when we deploy SharePoint and its availability, whether during upgrades, routine maintenance, or conversions to read only, users are kept in the know as they receive a prominent banner on their site that they provide insight into the activity being performed, helping reducing the calls to the help desk. So whenever any activity is going on a SharePoint site, user will be primarily notified on top of their SharePoint site automatically. There is no need to send any kind of mass emails for all the site application administrators that there would be some kind of downtime we would be performing, or so this basically reduce the burden on the help desk to receive some kind of unexpected calls. And we have in reliability, we have developer dashboard also included, wherein people can see, what exactly is being going on SharePoint side. When they access the SharePoint side, they can see wherein the request is going and when the request is coming. So this developer dashboard, I think, is quite more useful when we try to look for if I have some kind of custom deployment, custom code running on my site, and probably I can see where and if say my site is taking a lot of time, I could say what is the reason my site is taking a lot of time to load. In cost effectiveness, I would say we have deployment flexibility, wherein I think earlier SharePoint was counted as a kind of more robust when we deployed on physical servers, or now this term has been a kind of change in terms of people say it on premises. So there are kind of different things we have, wherein we have the virtualization coming up with Hyper-V. We can host multiple VMs on a single server on different data centers as well, which is kind of cost effective rather than investing in buying a physical boxes. So I think virtualization is kind of more cost effective, which SharePoint 2013 also gives us a flexibility. And cloud-based applications we also have, wherein we have Windows Azure available to us, wherein we can use software as a hardware as a service, or we can host SharePoint environments over the cloud-based applications as well. Also, some of the internet service providers also coming up with a multi-tenancy and cross premises integration as well, wherein they have different departments. They keep on adding their different sites to the multi-tenancy mode, wherein one single server, I would say, or basically giving it's multiple companies single environment accessing the SharePoint environment. So that term is basically called as multi-tenancy. And coming up to efficiency of SharePoint, I would say we have multiple screen options available, wherein we business connectivity services is quite improved. We have the search improved as well. So all in all, I would say that SharePoint 2013 has come up with a vast variety of new changes, either on the end user side, but I would see it a kind of more robust, scalable, and cost-effective, efficient, primarily on the infrastructure side. I have given some resources which probably might be helpful for you if you get this time, or probably the content of this PPT might be shared with you in the format of PDF, or you can download it from our site as well. So you can refer to these resources, which might be helpful for knowing about more what we are talking about today. Coming up to disaster recovery, it is very important to know that disaster recovery always, when we deploy any SharePoint environment, we always look for some kind of recovery model in every organization. Disaster recovery is basically nothing, I would say, when we have some unplanned or disaster by nature. So we should have, based on business requirement, some backups for our SharePoint form. It also basically depends upon how critical our SharePoint to our organization or to the business, or what kind of purpose it is serving to the organization. SharePoint 2013 is nothing different with the disaster recovery plans as kind of standard terminology comes in the picture. But few things we should all be knowing about, or we should know about, is some of things are listed here is recovery time object and recovery point object. They are also referred as RTO and RPO as well. RTO is basically nothing. RTO is basically nothing. It is basically a recovery time object wherein we have specified some times what is the expected downtime. When I have a disaster in my organization, I would definitely have this two standard terminologies defined, wherein I would say that what is the recovery time object or what is the recovery point object. Point object is say that by what time I can recover from that downtime, and time object says how much time does it need to take or to return to the normal mode, or maybe with some services to that organization. In disaster recovery, we should always concentrate based on the best practices, like not exactly to think about what is required, but we always should think about how it is required, because it is always depends from organization to organization how these RTO and RPO, these two factors are basically they vary from organization to organization. I could not standardize it based on my normal terminology that this is a standard RTO and RPO every organization should follow. No, it is basically based on the criticality of that particular disaster to that organization, how much loss it has been occurring, or how much financial loss it is having to the business. So in failure impact, we could say it's loss of application, service, and loss of data. So both of these things cover, like, what is the loss of application? I would say what are the things hosted on that SharePoint environment. I would say if I have some kind of critical audit data hosted on my SharePoint application, and due to that disaster, it all lost. So it would be basically connected as a kind of financial loss, or my organization might have to do some kind of standard certification which are being assigned to them based on, or they might have achieved due to that data. And as you might always be knowing, so I just also would love to touch upon some kind of standard data center terminology as well. Disaster recovery always come up with a cold standby, it is a warm standby, and a hot standby. Cold standby is nothing, it's a secondary data center we have and can provide availability in some hours or some days. So I would say most of the organization which to whom with SharePoint is not a very critical application, they can go by cold standby. Every type of the disaster have their multiple pros and cons. So if I talk about cold standby, it is always often the cheapest option to maintain, and operational cost to recover from this kind of disaster is always easy. And the cons, I would say, is it is always the slowest option to recover. So if SharePoint is quite critical, no organization would love to go with this. Warm standby is something that it talks about some minutes and some hours. I would say I can bear the loss for at least 6 hours, or maybe for 10 hours. So this is kind of fairly middle term most of the organization go with if they don't want to invest in the disaster recovery heavily. So they can offer this option. Hot standby is against secondary data center which provide availability in seconds and minutes, I think, which most of the organization always go with, because SharePoint is now being treated as a kind of most of the critical application to the business and to the organizations in terms of different terminologies. Like some people might use it for the content management, some organization might use it for the process improvement stuff. Pros and cons, if I say hot standby, it is always fast recovery. Cons, I would say it's very expensive to deploy, and it is very always hard to maintain because you have to look for the SQL. There are different approaches which you can opt or you can opt for your data recovery from the backend as well. Coming up to so as we have talked about these three things, I would say that I would love to more emphasize on the hot standby recovery options. In this, a separate configuration database and SharePoint central admin website content database must be maintained on a failover form. So it is not something a replication of a form. It is something which is a different form altogether. The replication would happen in the background with the SQL server, or maybe some by different modes. All the customization what we deploy on the production environment, which is the primary database data center, should be deployed on the both of the forms. Like primary and secondary should have the same customization deployed on them. Operating system, SQL Server, and SharePoint product software updates must be applied to both forms to maintain a consistent configuration across both forms. So again, whatever the patches, updates you deploy on your primary data center, it should be deployed on your secondary data center as well. You can copy SharePoint product content database to failover form by using a acronis mirroring, acronis commit, or availability group replica, or lock shipping. So these are different approaches I was talking about when I was emphasizing on the hot standby. Like this may be a primary decision of the organization or the organization who is deploying or or creating a secondary data center, how they wanted to have their content from replicated from primary data center to the secondary data center. There are different approaches we can use. Some people use a lock shipping, some people use mirroring of content databases. Some organization does opt for the SAND application as well, so wherein lock shipping and all that stuff doesn't come into picture. Service application vary in different way. I would say that some of the service application can be mirrored, or some service application cannot be lock shipped. So there are different resources on SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint sites as well, wherein you can see what are the different service applications you can count on, which can be migrated, or which can be basically made available to the business. So coming up to service application redundancy, you can see that I have listed 3 points there, which talks about this is business value in running that service application is in disaster recovery form, which is not being used. So it means that it is basically business decision which service application might be quite critical to them. So they would love to host that service application on the recovery data center or not. The database associated with the service application can be lock shipped, synchronously mirrored, or replicated using a synchronous committed. It is something that not all the service application get mirrored or get lock shipped. It is some of the critical service applications which the business requires. They needs to get to the second data centers. Service application can also run in the read-only database mode as well. I have also included some of the resources here as well for your reference, if you would love to reference them, and you can go to them and just try to see what are the different approaches or other things we have available with 2013. I was my lab was basically got crashed due to some reason, so I could not have chances to take you through the demos of configuring data disaster recovery options for 2013. But I have given a very good article from Samuel Betts, which is available on blog of MSDN. You can access that and you can read through all the different options which he has used for configuring disaster recovery in SharePoint 2013. Now, after disaster recovery, I would love to touch upon the health checks in SharePoint Server 2013. So everybody talks about health checks, that it is quite important, it is quite critical. But my first question to everybody is always that why health checks? Why would we do them? So I have listed some couple of points wherein we can say, what we originally designed and built on SharePoint environment to do and what is doing now are completely different. So what things we have been doing earlier, and now as SharePoint has come up with a vast variety and is quite more enhanced in terms of infrastructure, usability, maintainability, So what we were doing before, now what we're doing is different. So you may have users, more sites, more content, more customizations, more third-party tools, or you want to be the confident that your environment is stable and you are not about to experience any outages or failures. That is the reason I would say we do the health checks. We have seen periodically that SharePoint seems slower, less reliable recently, and we want to maintain user confidence that our platform is quite robust. You may also know, on some aspects are not working correctly, but have not had the time to address them. So we sometimes see some kind of regular issues coming up or popping up in our environment, but we certainly ignore them because we don't have much of the time to take care of them. Nightly backups and search crawls are taking longer and longer time to complete. So scheduled tasks regularly run into the next working day and make the whole environment incredibly slow. So when we come to the office, it's a business operation running on a peak, and we have some scheduled task running in the background, which basically makes the processor slow and running SharePoint slow. The business is looking for the reassurance that environment is secure. So my count on that is that business critical and sensitive nature of data held on SharePoint environment, together with the recent high-profile cases of system being compromised, has highlighted a need for ensuring the environment is built for SharePoint best practices. We all know that we should maintain the best practices or follow the best practices of SharePoint, but due to some kind of budgeting constraints or not exceeding or not enhancing your database, your infrastructure to some certain levels, we keep on adding some kind of same stuff to that existing infrastructure. So based on that, probably we also need some kind of doing the monitoring for the environment where we are standing and where we have to go. So most kind of common mistakes I feel people do with while deploying or working or monitoring their SharePoint environment is that there's a little or no SQL maintenance taking place on their SharePoint databases. People don't have any kind of SQL tuning done in their environment. So it basically generally, as SharePoint rely on SharePoint for every single request to be processed, either you access a document or a complete website or a single page. So SQL databases keep on growing in very large scale, and there is no basically improvement done. They're getting extended in terms of size. They're getting extended in terms of there is no compression done on SharePoint or no shrinking done on SharePoint. So sometimes I have also noticed that some incorrect service accounts are also being used to run the service application and application pools as well. Sometimes due to this reason, sometimes the web application timed out or you don't have access. Sometimes it kicks through. Sometimes I have also seen security concerns around service accounts being a local administrator or using the weak passwords. So that is also kind of main thing we should take into consideration, wherein people should have consider these kind of things, wherein they have the strong passwords or their SharePoint password should not be breached. Backups are not regularly taken or restores have not been tested. Again, it's kind of coming up to SQL side as well. So SQL maintenance is not done because there are no proper backups. And when a client says that he needs a restore from the last 1 year backup, so at that time we go to the customer and say that sorry, we don't have backup because we are not maintaining the backups according to the company policy. So at that time we are again lost. Search crawls, user profile report, and cyber job services are regularly failing. So these are some of the things which I feel that are kind of common mistakes which are been occurring in most of the organization these days. So that is, I would say, the health checks are quite important and required. We have a standardized tool with SharePoint 2013, which is Health Analyzer. It is nothing much different than what we have in 2010. I would just love to read it out for you, which talks about SharePoint Health Analyzer is a feature in Microsoft SharePoint Foundation 2013 that enables administrator to schedule regular automatic checks for potential configuration, performance, and users problems in server form. Any error that SharePoint Health Analyzer finds are identified in status report that are made available to the firm administrator in SharePoint Central Admin. Status reports explain each issue, list the server where the problem exists, and outline the steps that an administrator can take to remediate the problem. In some cases, errors are repaired automatically as soon as they are found, and firm administrator is informed of the repairs. So I would say this is a very good tool which basically gives you the complete detail of every single thing happening on your SharePoint environment. Whether that issue is critical, that issue is kind of medium priority, or it's a very high priority, it's keep on notifying you, giving the complete information about what is the issue, what is the error, and where it is happening, and what steps probably you can take to remediate that issue. Some of the tips for health checks, I would say that every single SharePoint administrator in their organization should maintain a SharePoint or the health check document. I would say it's a health check checklist, wherein you can just talk about some of the standard checks which you can maintain, or when you arrive to office, you can have the checklist open and just give some kind of yes to all the things which you list down in that checklist. It could be Excel sheet, or it could be kind of Word documents as well. I would say in health checks you should basically check for if all the logs which are being configured, they are being getting collected, which is quite primarily used at any time of problem when we wanted to investigate it. If any of the drives are running out of spaces, like you can standardize them in the form of, like, if they're reaching the threshold of whatever, so whatsoever you basically define in your infrastructure. So that threshold, if it is getting below the defined threshold, you can mark it as low. If it is in medium, you can mark it as amber, or if it is getting into the high, then you can mark it as red. And it's the point of saying that this is the time that you need to act. You can also check if your search crawls are running properly or not. And you can also check if your event logs in the event viewer or health analyzer are being recorded. And whenever you get time, if at all you see that there is some kind of investigation you need to do, you can count on that basically and pick that up to do some kind of investigation on that. Sorry. Event logs also are quite important, wherein I would say if some events you see are regularly happening or primarily happening, so you can basically see, try to find some references in the ULS logs, or ULS viewer is a kind of a good tool which you can use to analyze correlation IDs for your issues which you find on the SharePoint.
Amardeep?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. There is a question from Junko.
All right, I'll take it up. Repair is good for us. How do we know about it? Basically, what repairs you're saying? I'm quite confused with that. Repairs in terms of repairing the complete SharePoint environment, or repairing some issues, or what? Or probably we can discuss it at the end of the session if it goods. I will keep this question as open as of now. So probably I would need to understand what repair we are talking about, and what are the things you basically want to know about it.
Yeah, sure. Let's keep it at the end. You can continue.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Coming up to this point, I would say, I have always seen that SharePoint health checks and SharePoint performance tuning walks hand in hand. If we have health checks done as a kind of primary task by every SharePoint administrator, we could say SharePoint will perform better. But there are certain things wherein we can also put some checks on the SharePoint performance as well. When we deploy environment, we should have all the things to be considered wherein SharePoint is performing good or bad. We have different tools, I would say, to check for SharePoint performance tuning, and for, like, we have the ULS logs. Everybody knows about that to check We have some different tools to manage the SharePoint capacity and planning reports as well. We have SPDAG utility as well. We have SP Dispose Check utility as well, which basically helps you to analyze or check some kind of issues you may encounter in your environment. I have tried to include some of the resources here as well for the health checks, wherein we have this kind of more enhanced version and then SharePoint 2013 on the site level as well, wherein people can see when their site is upgraded, whether it is running in a good mode or a bad mode. And there are some there is reference for the SharePoint Health Analyzer rules as well, which there are some custom rules which you can configure in SharePoint, wherein you feel that what are the standards comes up with SharePoint 2013, and you wanted to monitor something based on your requirements. So there are some custom rules available which Microsoft suggests. So you can refer to that link as well. And there is a Codeplex SharePoint Health and the rules it's a kind of project has been written as well. It's a kind of solution you need to deploy in your environment, and you can download and deploy. And some of the custom solution rules will be getting incorporated in your health analyzer, which primarily would be helping you to analyze your SharePoint environment better. Now, coming up to performance tuning in SharePoint 2013, as I've said, health check and performance tuning of SharePoint walks in hand. If our health check practice is always standardized and are good, and I mean we are good with the health check, so I think SharePoint will always perform better. But still, there are some kind of things which we can put in place to have the SharePoint performing better. I would read out this for you what basically performance tuning is all about. Performance tuning is set of different activities to configure and monitor in your environment to keep it in a healthy state always. As I said, if we monitor the environment based on our health checklist, so our SharePoint environment will always perform better. To maintain SharePoint Server 2013 system performance, you must monitor your server to identify potential bottlenecks, which we will be talking about. Before you can monitor efficiently, you must understand the key indicators that will tell you if a specific part of your firm requires attention. Yes, of course, as we are doing the health checks, we always get to know about what are the potential points wherein we feel that this thing needs an attention, or it could be a critical thing, it could be a medium thing, or it could be a low priority which can be ignored or could not have potential issues on the service. If you find that your firm is operating outside the targets you have defined, which are the thresholds we have talked about in health checks, you can adjust your firm by adding or removing hardware resources, changing your topology, or changing how data is stored. So these are the some things which basically a job of infrastructure administrator. I would say it's a SharePoint infrastructure administrator, wherein you keep on monitoring your environment, and wherein you feel that there is a need of improvement in hardware. Maybe your RAM is low, or maybe your hard disk is getting below your defined thresholds, or if at all you need any changes in your defined topology, or maybe you have any needs of adding some web servers to the environment or application servers to the environment, or if at all you also have some needs to bring in some new SQL server into the environment. And you also may need to look at the some of the things wherein you feel that there are some needs of basically how data is being stored. I would say some people, the point of improvement I would say in SQL, we have everything stored on SQL Server, like SharePoint search is deployed on or configured on same server, configuration database also on the same server, content database is also on the same server, application services databases is also hosted on same servers. So wherein we feel that something is making our environment slow, or we need to look at how the data is stored, or maybe we need to bring in some SQL server to host a search environment separately, or maybe service application separately. So those are the things we can look at. So what are the things basically which we can look at for performance tuning? Are configuring performance counters, we all know that when SharePoint, not SharePoint, it's the Windows server was launched, there was a good setup tool which people was not using at that time to monitor the performance of their environment. I would always have encouraged all the clients to make very good use of that. It is called the performance counter. So per flock, we always can monitor, or we can analyze later point of time if we have any kind of issues with that. Use of warm-up scripts we have, wherein we have some issues with the SharePoint slow running at the first time when our application pool are recycled. So we can use the warm-up scripts. We can use cache as well. We can optimize IS. We will be looking at some of the SQL Server tuning as well. I've already said at the starting of this session. Different level of optimization we have. We can do the infrastructure optimizations. We can do the database optimization. Caching is also included in a different level of optimizations. We can also do the server optimization. There are different page level optimizations as well, and some are the different considerations we can look at as well. So configuring performance counters, we can say that we should monitor hard disk bottlenecks. You can always go to your performance counters in your server where the SharePoint is hosted, and you can define the thresholds for your hard disk, and based on that you can check if there are any hard disk bottlenecks, or if there are any memory bottlenecks as well. There are performance processor bottlenecks as well. I would also love to take you through the demo, but certainly, as I mentioned, my lab was crashed, so I have also given a kind of reference wherein you can basically check what are the performance counters and what are the different things wherein you can get the output of that. Use of warm-up scripts, basically, as I mentioned, we can always use warm-up script wherein our application pool, our every web applications got recycled at every night, or we have some different thresholds defined for them. So we can deploy warm-up script, which could be in the form of PowerShell script, or which could be in form of different things, or you can have scheduled task defined in your environment. And it's something when maybe a director of your organization come to office and he try to access SharePoint application or maybe a site collection. It seems to be slow at that time when you first hit your SharePoint. It always been slow. So by doing the warm-up script or deploying the warm-up script, we ensure that before anybody come to the office and hit first time to that SharePoint, our environment is basically improved, or that request will get improved. I have given some resources there as well, wherein we have the warm-up scripts from the TechNet gallery, and you can also look for the second link as well, where we have some warm-up scripts, or you can refer to the different things wherein we have some scripts which are created by people and you can deploy in your environment. Use of cache, I would say we should make sure that we have all the custom controls that parts are using cache. Framework of custom web parts is available in CodePlex. You can refer to this link as well. And web parts that are built using the framework will use of caching and asynchronous loading of data into web part page after the page is loaded. SharePoint supports the following types of caching. Like we all know that blob cache is basically nothing. It controls caching for the binary large objects such as images, sounds, videos, and some static content files like CSS disk space. Caching is fast. It eliminates the need for database round trips. Blobs are retrieved from the database once the once are stored on the web client, further requests are served from the cache and trimmed based on security. Output cache is nothing, basically it requires the publishing infrastructure. It is specially geared more towards publishing portals. HTML pages are written into memory and served from memory as opposed to serving from them from the coming up to branch cache is a feature within Windows 2008 R2 which allows you to put documents from the network and caching them locally. Branch cache improves performance on application that uses HTTP or HTTPS. You have this option available in your SharePoint environment, wherein you can go to SharePoint site collection administrator features, and you can enable site collection, cache profile, site collection object caches, content type services, application error logs, site collection output caching. In optimizing IIS, I would say we have IIS compression. IIS compression is turned on by default in Windows Server 2008 and 2012 as well. An important thing to note is that it's just enabled. It's just enabled but not configured. Remember that it's enabled but not configured. IIS compression takes all the objects in the site. Whatever the objects you have in SharePoint site defined, it all takes them, compresses them and deliver them to the similar package to the clients. It can be configured to be set off level from, I believe, 0 to 9. By default, it is set to 0. When it is turned on, it is 9. 9 means a lot of pressure on CPU utilization. So we should recommend that we should keep it somewhere around 6, 7, 8, 9, depending upon your hardware. Basically, if your hardware is quite robust, so you can have it defined to the maximum scale. IIS compression is only enabled but not configured, as already mentioned. If you want to make sure that it is enabled, you need to open your IIS manager, choose a site, click on the button, and you can click on the compression button there. We have different level of we can define the compression at different level. One is I just mentioned about the GUI, opening up your IIS and select a site and select compression, and you can select the compression level. Second thing is that we can do it through the commandlet as well, so you can find the resources over the internet as well. Other thing which I would take is kind of resource throttling, which basically we can have available in central admin. Why I have taken it into optimizing IIS is because the central admin is hosted in IIS itself. So we can define the limits. By default, throttling is set to 5,000 items. So we can have somewhere around 20,000 items. SQL Server by default locks the table when it executes a query that return more than 500 records from a record set. We can change this limit in central admin depending upon the environments and the requirement, but this is not recommended practice to do it. Instead, we can consider enabling bit rate throttling. Bit rate throttling is nothing but basically it controls download speed of the large objects like Flash, server-side PDs, etc. by limiting the amount of bandwidth that can be used for the streaming. So to enable the throttling, you just need to navigate to your central admin. You have to select application management, manage web applications, choose the desired web application, and go to the web application general settings. And from there you can select the resource throttling. Enabling object model overrides, basically it overriding allows you to custom code to be enabled to retrieve more than 5,000 items at a time. So there are some other considerations we can look at, which are basically, I would say, the page optimization. So we can optimize the pages in SharePoint. SharePoint pages contain a lot of resources that could be including, or there are no limit to that, but some of the pages I would Some of the sources I would love to mention is that like JavaScript files we have CSS files, navigation controls, menus, web parts. We have custom controls, we have delegates, we have publishing fields, we have search controls. Custom pages may be easy to develop, but they are very bad in performing. So the advantage with the customized pages is that it can be created, modified using the SharePoint designer. So there is no out-of-the-box way wherein we can deploy custom pages. When a page is customized in SharePoint and saved, it will no longer be served from the file system. So it will be deployed on your SharePoint environment. So it is a part of your SharePoint site family. Instead of copy the page, will be written in a database. As I mentioned, the SharePoint basically the page will be stored into the database, and how much of the code you have put up on that page basically affects your performance of the SharePoint environment, because the pages is coming from the SharePoint infrastructure for SharePoint database. Now, on the optimizing branding side, I advise you start building master pages from the minimal masters. This is much cleaner starting point that will remove much of the unnecessary items in standard master pages. Consolidate all CSS and JavaScript files and try to minify the JavaScript files so that the browser does not have to make multiple requests for multiple CSS files. Additionally, you can also use images stitching on pages with lots of small images to reduce the number of requests as well. Talking about the synchronously load web parts controls, if we have XLST list view web parts or the search result web part for displaying list data or aggregated data, SharePoint 2013 allows you to load the web part after the page is loaded. To enable this setting, you need to edit the web part from the edit the page, and then you can navigate to Ajax option section and check the options of enable a synchronized load. Some of the other consideration, I would say, the list definitions we can look at. In list definitions, we have the column limits, which is widely known as we all know that SharePoint 2013 stored in SQL Server tables to allow the maximum number of possible columns in SharePoint list. SharePoint Server will create several rows in database when the data will not fit in a single row. So it's keep on adding as much as your list is huge. Your database keep on growing, and it will basically it will be reducing your response to the. Basically, will be reducing the response to your request, which client will be doing. We have developer dashboard. I think we have touched upon the developer dashboard as well. It basically gives you to provide the metrics of how much time any single page is taking for their executions. Timer job separation, we can we can take some jobs and pin them to the content database, which is running in a different form on a different environment, so that loads is for the server. I have jotted down some of the points for the SQL Server tuning, wherein we have database operations like how do we read write the stuff on database, how the disk and file location are defined, whether they are on the very separate network or on the SAN or on the same servers, what is the database size we have, what are the system databases and SharePoint. There are some kind of tweaking we could do with the temp database and the model databases for SharePoint that we should take into consideration. We should have proper database management in place, wherein we have proper backups, incremental backups, granular backups running. Database settings we have to take into consideration. We should always offer the compressed backups for SQL tuning as well. We should be doing the shrinking on the logs files as well, and there should be proper checks or consideration when we need to do that. We should be opting for the database recovery model. We should also check for the network bandwidth our SQL Server is utilizing or SharePoint is utilizing. We can also do some checks on increase the memory limits of the SharePoint as well. Sorry, the SQL as well. I have included some of the resources for looking at the software boundaries for the limits for SharePoint 2013, how we can manage the databases in 2013, and some of the operations for 2013. With this, I have come to my end of the session. You can look at my site, which is mossandwss.blogspot.com. I keep on posting some of the troubleshooting issues which I've been doing in my environment, and I have given my email ID wherein you can reach me. I have my Skype ID wherein you can add to your Skype profile, or you would like to chat with me online, or probably you want to follow. I have maintained some of the online communities on the Facebook as well. So this is what I have with me, and I hope this information was valuable to you, or you must have enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Amardeep. So we have one question which you can just have a look on that.
Yeah, I would just again, I have this concern of, again, as I mentioned, about what repair is good for us. How do we know about it? So I'm just posting bracket to what kind of repair you. Is it the SharePoint environment? SharePoint environment repair, or it is some other repair that the guy is looking at. I didn't hear anything back from the candidate.
Yeah. So if there is any questions from the audience, you can post it now.
I think there is one. So health analyzer part article said. Okay, so repairing in health analyzer, is that something? Sometimes we have some of the things which we allow SharePoint to do it itself. I think this is a kind of more a good feature we have seen in SharePoint 2013 and in Windows Server 2012 as well. I think in Windows 8 this feature was there as well, which basically talks about if you are not sure of any things, what steps needs to be taken, so you can basically let SharePoint get out of it automatically, which basically look for the possible solutions from the online available resources for SharePoint. So it basically takes the steps to recover it from that problem itself, rather than you taking any step or any remediation steps to fix that issue. I hope that answers your question. I'm just marking it as answered.
Okay, so if you don't have any questions, let's wrap up the session. So thank you, Amardeep Singh, for your valuable time today and for delivering the useful topic. I hope the audience have enjoyed and the session was equally useful for them. I'd like to mention here that feedback is important in planning these sessions, and we would request all the attendees to provide the feedback by participating in the survey. With the event stream will be sending you an email with the link to take up the survey. And thank you for the speaker. Looking forward to see you in the next event. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thanks for valuable time and being there for this session. I appreciate it. Thank you.